My name is Claire Morgan, and I was flying across America when I learned my entire family had lied to me. At first, I thought it was just a strange message, a mistake, maybe a prank. But by the time the plane landed, my mother was crying, my brother was missing, and a stranger was waiting at our home with a secret that should have stayed buried forever. What I discovered next didn't just destroy my family, it rewrote who I was. Because the truth wasn't about betrayal. It was about who I really belonged to, and why someone powerful spent 35 years making sure I never found out. Welcome back to Inspired Real Events, where ordinary people meet impossible family and the quiet ones learn the loudest lessons. If betrayal, gratitude, and slow burn justice are your thing, you're in the right place. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from, and be sure to subscribe. Until the day everything fell apart, I believed I had a normal life. Not perfect, not glamorous, just normal. I was 35 years old, lived in Seattle, worked as a commercial flight coordinator, and spent my weekends drinking overpriced coffee while pretending I would eventually finish the novel I started 6 years ago. My family lived in Boston. My parents had been married for nearly 40 years. My younger brother Ethan was a lawyer. My older sister Madison was a pediatric nurse. Every Christmas we gathered around the same dining table. Every Thanksgiving my mother made the same pumpkin pie. Every birthday ended with embarrassing childhood stories and too many photographs. I thought I knew exactly who I was. I was wrong. The truth found me somewhere above Nebraska, at 35,000 feet. And by the time the plane landed, the family I thought I knew no longer existed. The morning had started like every other business trip. Rain tapped softly against my apartment windows. Seattle's skis were gray and heavy. I packed my laptop, grabbed a travel mug of coffee, and headed to the airport. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing warned me. Nothing prepared me. If someone had stopped me that morning and said, "Claire, by tonight you'll discover that your entire life has been built on lies," I would have laughed. Actually laughed. The kind of laugh that comes from feeling completely safe. Completely secure, completely clueless. I boarded my flight shortly after 8, window seat. Row 16, my favorite spot. As the plane climbed above the clouds, I slipped on headphones and opened a presentation for work. 2 hours passed, then 3. Somewhere over the Midwest, turbulence rattled the cabin. Passengers groaned. Flight attendants secured carts. I looked out the window at endless white clouds stretching toward the horizon. Beautiful, peaceful. Then my phone vibrated. Normally, I ignored messages during flights. But something made me look. Maybe instinct, maybe fate. Maybe the universe finally deciding it was time. The notification came from an unfamiliar number. No name, no photo, just a text. 3 words. Ask your mother. I frowned. That was it. No explanation, no greeting, nothing else. I almost deleted it, almost. Then another message arrived. My stomach tightened. This one included a photograph. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. An old photograph, faded, yellowed, taken decades ago. A young woman stood outside a hospital. She couldn't have been older than 20. She had dark blonde hair, bright eyes, a nervous smile. And she looked exactly like me. Not similar, not close. Exactly. My pulse stumbled. I zoomed in. The resemblance was impossible. Same eyes, same nose, same smile, same tiny dimple on the left cheek. It felt like staring into a mirror that existed 35 years in the past. My hands started shaking. A third message appeared. She gave you away. The cabin suddenly felt smaller, the air thinner, the engine noise louder. I read the sentence again, and again, and again. My heart hammered. What was this? A joke? A scam? Some cruel prank? I typed back immediately. Who is this? The response came less than 10 seconds later. Ask your mother why she lied. Cold rushed through my body. The stranger sent one final photograph. This time it wasn't a picture of the woman. It was a hospital document, a birth certificate, partially folded, partially damaged, but one detail remained perfectly visible. The baby's name. Claire Elizabeth Morgan, my name, my exact name. I stopped breathing. No, that couldn't be right. I stared until the letters blurred, then sharpened, then blurred again. The mother's name listed on the document wasn't Susan Morgan. The woman who raised me. The woman I called Mom. The woman who kissed, scraped knees, and attended every school play. It was someone else, a name I'd never heard before. Rachel Bennett. The turbulence worsened. Passengers shifted nervously, but I barely noticed. Because my entire world had just tilted sideways, I immediately called my mother. No answer, of course. The plane was still in flight. I sent a text. Mom, call me immediately. Emergency. A few minutes later, another message arrived from the unknown number. She's never going to tell you the truth. My hands trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Who are you? The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again, finally a response. Someone who promised your real mother I would find you. Real mother. The words hit like ice water. Real mother. My chest tightened. I looked around the cabin. Families, couples, business travelers, complete strangers, everyone looked normal. Meanwhile, my entire identity was cracking apart. I remembered every family photograph hanging in my parents' house, every birthday party, every vacation, every childhood memory. Suddenly, they all felt uncertain, like puzzle pieces from the wrong box. The stranger sent one last sentence, then vanished. Your real mother died 6 months ago waiting for you. I felt something break inside me, a sharp, painful crack, the kind that doesn't heal quickly, the kind that changes everything. I called again, no answer, again, nothing. Hours crawled by. The plane finally began descending. My stomach churned. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe properly, couldn't understand what was happening. The moment the wheels touched the runway, I switched off airplane mode. My phone exploded with notifications, emails, work messages, missed calls. Then one text from my mother, just 6 words. We need to talk, please. My blood ran cold. Not. What are you talking about? Not to. Someone is lying to you. Not to. This is nonsense. No, instead she sent 6 words that confirmed my worst fear. We need to talk, please. I stared at the screen, my vision blurred. The woman who raised me had just admitted there was something to talk about. Something big, something terrible, something capable of destroying 35 years of certainty. I stood in the aisle as passengers collected luggage. My legs felt weak. The world felt unreal. Then my phone rang. Mom, her contact photo appeared, smiling, happy, the same picture I'd seen for years. For a moment I couldn't answer, because I already knew. The moment I picked up that call, my life would divide into 2 parts, before the truth, and after it. The phone continued ringing. My hand hovered over the screen. Then finally, I answered. And the first thing my mother said made my knees nearly buckle. Claire. Her voice broke. Then came the words that changed everything. I'm so sorry. And in that moment, before she explained anything at all, I knew. The stranger hadn't lied. Someone had hidden the truth from me for 35 years, and somehow every person I loved was involved. The moment my mother said, I'm so sorry, I stopped walking. Passengers streamed around me inside the crowded terminal. Rolling suitcases rattled across the floor. Announcements echoed overhead. People laughed. Children cried. Life continued as if nothing had happened. But my world had just cracked open. Mom, I said quietly, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers hurt. Tell me this isn't true. Silence. The kind of silence that says everything before a single word is spoken. My stomach dropped. Mom. A shaky breath came through the line. Then another. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard. I never wanted you to find out this way. The floor seemed to vanish beneath me. I closed my eyes. Oh my God. Claire. No. My voice broke. No, don't do that. I could hear her crying, actual crying. My mother never cried, not when Grandpa died, not when she had surgery, not when Ethan moved across the country, but now she was crying, and that terrified me more than anything. Who is Rachel Bennett? The question hung between us, heavy, sharp, dangerous. For several seconds, all I heard was her breathing, then she whispered, She was your mother. The airport disappeared. The noise, the people, everything gone. There was only that sentence. 4 words capable of destroying 35 years. She was your mother. I sank into an empty chair near the gate. My legs couldn't support me anymore. I felt like I might throw up. I don't understand. You deserve answers. Damn right I deserve answers. The anger surprised even me. I wasn't usually angry. Friends described me as patient, calm, reasonable, but right now I wanted to scream. You lied to me my entire life. CLAIRE. My entire life. People nearby turned to look. I didn't care. Tears burned behind my eyes. You let me believe you gave birth to me. We raised you. That's not what I asked. Silence again. Then, your father wanted it that way. Those words stopped me cold. My father, my chest tightened. My dad, the man who taught me to ride a bike. The man who walked me down the aisle at my wedding. The man who died 3 years ago from pancreatic cancer. The man I still missed every single day. The man who could no longer answer questions. The man who had taken secrets into the grave. A terrible feeling settled over me. The stranger's message suddenly made sense. Ask your mother, not your father, because my father was gone. And whatever he knew had been buried with him. Start talking, I whispered. My mother inhaled deeply, and then she told me the first piece of the story, a story that sounded impossible. 36 years earlier, Rachel Bennett had been 20 years old, unmarried, scared, pregnant, alone. According to my mother, Rachel arrived in Boston with almost nothing. No family support, no money, no place to go. She worked temporary jobs and struggled to survive. Then she met my father. The sentence hit me like a truck. What? My mother's voice trembled. Rachel knew your father. I stood up so fast the chair tipped backward. What do you mean she knew Dad? The answer came slowly, painfully. They were friends. Friends, I didn't believe it. Something felt wrong, very wrong. Mom. What? You're lying again. She started crying harder, because she knew I had caught it. Friends didn't end up connected to secret birth certificates. Friends didn't create 35 years of deception. Friends weren't the reason strangers tracked down daughters decades later. No, I said firmly. Tell me the truth. Another long silence. Then my mother whispered. They weren't just friends. I felt my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to hang up, to run, to pretend none of this was happening. But I couldn't. I needed the truth, no matter how ugly it was. They had a relationship. The words landed like a punch. A relationship. My father, Rachel, before my mother, or maybe during. I didn't know. And suddenly I wasn't sure I wanted to know. I left the airport and walked blindly toward the parking garage. Rain had started falling. Cold droplets soaked my jacket. I barely noticed. Was Dad my father? My mother answered immediately. Yes. At least one thing was simple. One thing was real. One thing hadn't changed. But then another question surfaced. A question that made my skin crawl. When did this happen? The silence returned, and this time it lasted so long I thought the call had disconnected. Finally. CLARE. My chest tightened. When? Before your father and I got married. I exhaled, part relief, part confusion, part suspicion, because something still didn't fit, not even close. If Rachel and Dad had dated before my parents married, why all the secrecy? Why hide me? Why invent an entirely different story? Why lie for decades? My mother must have sensed my confusion, because she whispered. There's more. Of course there was. There was always more. The truth was unfolding like a nightmare. Every answer created 3 new questions. What more? I heard her take a trembling breath. Then she told me something that made my blood run cold. Rachel hadn't willingly given me away. I stopped walking. Rain dripped from my hair. Cars passed nearby. The world blurred. What did you just say? She didn't want to lose you. The sentence hit harder than anything else. Harder than the birth certificate. Harder than the lies. Harder than discovering another woman had given birth to me. Because for 35 years I had imagined adoption one way, a mother unable to care for a child, a painful sacrifice, a heartbreaking choice. But now my mother was telling me Rachel fought to keep me. I could barely breathe. What happened? My mother's crying intensified. The answer came out broken. Your father told her she wasn't fit to raise a baby. My heart slammed against my ribs. No. He convinced her you'd have a better life. No. He promised she'd still be able to see you. I felt sick, actually sick, because I already knew how the story ended. Rachel never saw me, not once, not ever. Mom. My voice shook violently. What happened after that? My mother didn't answer, and suddenly I understood why, because whatever happened next was the darkest part, the part my father had tried to bury forever, the part nobody wanted to discuss, the part hidden for 35 years. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded shattered. Your father changed his mind. A chill raced down my spine. What does that mean? He told Rachel it would be better if she stayed away completely. I closed my eyes. The rain felt freezing now. Rachel had trusted him, trusted his promises, trusted his word. And then he had taken me away. Forever. A horrible image formed in my mind. A young woman standing outside a hospital, crying, begging, watching her daughter disappear, never knowing if she'd see her again, never hearing her laugh, never watching her grow up, never celebrating birthdays, never hugging her, never hearing her call her mom. My chest ached so badly it felt physical. Did she ever try to find me? The answer came immediately. Yes. I swallowed hard. How many times? My mother's voice cracked. More than once. The parking garage suddenly felt colder, darker. Every word made my father seem less familiar, less like the man I remembered, less like the hero of my childhood. And that realization hurt. God, it hurt, because grief is complicated. How do you mourn someone while discovering they broke another person's heart? How do you love someone and hate what they did? How do you reconcile two completely different versions of the same man? I didn't know. I still don't. Then why didn't she find me? My mother started sobbing. The answer came through tears. Because your father made sure she couldn't. I froze. The words echoed inside my head again and again and again. My father made sure she couldn't. Every memory I had of him suddenly felt uncertain, like photographs burning at the edges, like stories changing shape, like a stranger wearing my father's face. Then my mother revealed the secret he had carried to his grave, the secret that explained everything, the secret nobody wanted me to know. Rachel B. and an ETT had spent 35 years believing I hated her. My heart stopped. What? My mother cried openly now. He wrote letters. Who wrote letters? Your father. The air left my lungs. He answered Rachel's messages. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't think. The world narrowed to a single horrifying realization. My father had communicated with my biological mother for years, maybe decades, without telling me, without telling her the truth, without allowing us to meet. He told her, my mother whispered, that you didn't want contact. A sound escaped me, half gasp, half cry, because I knew immediately what that meant. Rachel had spent 35 years believing her daughter rejected her, believing I wanted nothing to do with her, believing I chose not to know her, when in reality I never even knew she existed. Tears finally spilled down my face, hot, uncontrollable, heartbreaking. Why? The question came out broken. Why? My mother's answer was barely audible. Because your father was afraid. Afraid of what? Losing you. I laughed, a painful laugh, the kind that sounds more like crying, the kind that comes from heartbreak, the kind that hurts. So he stole 35 years from both of us. No answer, because there wasn't one. No explanation could justify that. No excuse could erase it. No apology could fix it. I stood alone in the rain, weeping, shaking, trying to understand how one man could be both a wonderful father and the architect of so much pain. Then my mother said something that changed everything once again. CLAIRE. I wiped my eyes. What? There's one more thing. My stomach dropped. Of course there was. There was always one more thing. What now? Her next sentence turned my blood to ice. The woman who texted you. Yeah. My mother's voice trembled. She's waiting outside my house right now. I stopped breathing, because suddenly this wasn't about the past anymore. The mystery wasn't over. It was only beginning, and whoever had spent decades searching for me had finally arrived. For several seconds after my mother spoke, I couldn't say a word. Rain continued falling around me. Cars moved through the parking garage. People hurried past carrying luggage, but all I could hear was one sentence. She's waiting outside my house right now. My heart pounded. The stranger. The woman who had shattered my world with a few text messages. The woman who somehow knew everything. The woman who had found me after 35 years. Who is she? I finally asked. I don't know. My mother's answer surprised me. What do you mean you don't know? She's never been here before. I closed my eyes. Nothing about this situation made sense anymore. Every answer led to another mystery. Every truth uncovered an even darker secret beneath it. What does she want? My mother hesitated, then she whispered. She says Rachel asked her to find you. The words sent chills through me. Rachel, the woman I had never met. The woman whose face looked exactly like mine. The woman who had apparently spent decades searching for me. The woman who was now dead. I swallowed hard. When did she die? 6 months ago. 6 months. For 35 years Rachel had searched. And 6 months before I learned the truth, she was gone. The realization stabbed straight through my heart. I leaned against a concrete pillar. Suddenly exhausted, overwhelmed, angry, heartbroken. I didn't even know this woman, yet I couldn't stop imagining her. What did she look like at 30, at 40, at 50? Did she laugh like me? Did she love coffee? Did she hate thunderstorms? Did she think about me every birthday, every Christmas? Every Mother's Day? The thought made tears return. I quickly wiped them away. Mom. Yes. I'm coming to Boston. Silence, then a trembling breath. Okay. For the first time since the conversation began, neither of us argued. Neither of us cried. Neither of us tried to explain, because we both understood. The truth had finally arrived, and there was no turning back. 3 hours later, I was on another flight. This time I wasn't staring at presentations, or answering emails, or pretending life was normal. Instead, I sat beside the window and stared into darkness, unable to stop thinking, unable to stop remembering. Memories flooded my mind. My father teaching me how to ride a bicycle, my father cheering at soccer games, my father hugging me after my college graduation, my father dancing terribly at my wedding, my father holding my hand in a hospital room 3 years earlier, weak, dying, looking at me with tears in his eyes. At the time, I thought those tears were because he was saying goodbye. Now I wasn't so sure. What if he had been carrying guilt? What if he wanted to tell me? What if he almost confessed? Questions consumed me for the entire flight. By the time I landed in Boston, it was nearly midnight. I rented a car and drove straight to my mother's house, the same house where I grew up. The same white colonial home with blue shutters, the same front porch, the same maple tree in the yard. Everything looked familiar, and yet somehow nothing felt familiar anymore. I pulled into the driveway. The porch light glowed softly. A single figure sat in one of the rocking chairs, waiting. My heart began racing. The stranger. I turned off the engine. For a moment, I simply sat there, trying to gather courage, trying to prepare myself, trying to understand how one person could completely alter the course of my life. Then the woman stood. She appeared to be in her early 60s, silver hair, kind eyes, a worn brown coat. She didn't look threatening. She didn't look dangerous. She looked tired, deeply tired, like someone carrying a burden for a very long time. The front door opened. My mother stepped outside. Her eyes were swollen from crying. The moment I saw her, my anger returned. But beneath it was something else, sadness. Because she looked broken. And for the first time, I realized she might have been carrying this secret almost as heavily as my father had. Nobody spoke, not immediately. The three of us simply stood there, studying one another, waiting. Finally, the older woman stepped forward. Claire. I nodded. She smiled sadly. Oh my goodness. Her eyes filled with tears. You have Rachel's smile. The sentence hit me harder than I expected. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was shocking, but because it was the first time anyone had ever connected me to Rachel. Not my father, not my mother, not my siblings, no one. For 35 years, half my identity had remained hidden, and this stranger recognized it instantly. Who are you? I asked. The woman took a shaky breath. My name is Evelyn Carter. She extended a hand. I shook it. Her fingers trembled, just like mine. I was Rachel's best friend. My throat tightened. Best friend, someone who had actually known her, someone who had laughed with her, cried with her, shared memories with her, someone who could tell me who she really was. A strange ache formed in my chest. The ache of missing someone I'd never met. Evelyn reached into her bag, carefully, slowly. Then she removed a weathered cardboard box. My stomach dropped. The box looked old, very old. The edges were worn, the corners damaged, its surface stained by time. She held it tightly, almost protectively. "Rachel left this for you." I stared at it, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to breathe. "What is it?" Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Her life." The world seemed to stop. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. She stepped forward, placed the box in my hands, and suddenly 35 years of lost history weighed against my chest. I looked down. Photographs, letters, notebooks, documents, memories, pieces of a life, pieces of my life. Tears blurred my vision. "She kept all this." Evelyn nodded. "Every single year." I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" The older woman smiled sadly. Then she told me something I would never forget. "Rachel celebrated your birthday every year." My knees nearly buckled. No, 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 the image shattered me. A woman alone, lighting candles, buying a cake, thinking about a daughter she couldn't see, year after year, decade after decade. "Oh God." My voice cracked. Evelyn wiped her eyes. "She never stopped loving you." I couldn't hold back anymore. The tears came fast, heavy, uncontrollable, because suddenly Rachel wasn't just a name, she wasn't just a photograph, she wasn't just a mystery. She was real, painfully real, and she'd spent her entire life loving a daughter she never got to know. An hour later, the three of us sat around my mother's dining table. The same table where we celebrated holidays. The same table where my father once sat. The same table where lies had survived for decades. The cardboard box rested in front of me, waiting, almost daring me to open it. Finally, I lifted the lid. Inside were dozens of journals, neatly organized, each labeled by year. 1989, 1990, 1991, 1992, and onward, year after year. My hands shook. 35 years. 35 years of memories. 35 years of thoughts. 35 years of love. The first journal felt fragile. I carefully opened it. Inside, written in beautiful handwriting, was a single sentence. "For my daughter Claire, in case you ever find me." A sob escaped my throat. My mother looked away, unable to watch. Evelyn quietly reached for a tissue. I turned the page and began reading. The first entry was dated just days after my birth. Rachel described holding me, counting my fingers, watching me sleep, kissing my forehead. The words radiated love, pure love, unconditional love. The kind only a mother can feel. Then I reached a passage that made my heart stop. Rachel wrote, "Your father promised I would see you again soon." I froze, continued reading. "He says this separation is temporary." Another page. "He says he is helping us." Another page. "I trust him." My stomach twisted, because I already knew how that trust ended: betrayal, loss, heartbreak. Page after page documented Rachel's growing confusion, then concern, then panic, then devastation. Eventually, my father stopped responding, stopped calling, stopped writing, simply disappeared, taking me with him. I felt physically sick. The room spun. How could he do this? How? Why? I turned another page, then another, then another. Suddenly, something slipped from between the journal pages. A folded envelope. Yellow with age, my pulse quickened. I carefully opened it. Inside was a photograph, my father, Rachel, and a third person, someone I had never seen before. A man, tall, dark-haired, standing beside them. All three appeared nervous, almost frightened. I frowned. "Who is this?" Evelyn's expression changed instantly. The color drained from her face. My mother looked equally alarmed. A horrible silence filled the room. I stared between them. "What?" Neither woman answered. My heart began pounding again. "What is it?" Evelyn slowly sat down, as if her legs had suddenly weakened. Then she whispered words that sent ice through my veins. "Claire." I looked at her. The older woman's eyes were full of fear, actual fear, the kind that doesn't disappear with age, the kind people carry for decades. "The man in that photograph is the reason your father took the truth to his grave." The room went silent, completely silent. My pulse thundered. I stared at the unknown man, a stranger frozen in time, A stranger somehow connected to my life. A stranger powerful enough to terrify everyone at the table. Then Evelyn revealed the first piece of a secret even bigger than the adoption. A secret Rachel had spent years trying to uncover. A secret my father had desperately hidden. A secret that could destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. The man in that photograph, Evelyn whispered, wasn't supposed to know you existed. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. The man in that photograph wasn't supposed to know you existed. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked loudly. Tick, tick, tick. Each second felt heavier than the last. I stared at the photograph, then at Evelyn, then at my mother. Neither woman looked surprised, neither woman looked confused, both looked terrified, and that terrified me. Because whatever this secret was, they already knew pieces of it, pieces I didn't, pieces that somehow connected to my father, my real mother, and now me. I carefully placed the photograph on the table. Tell me who he is. Evelyn's hands trembled. She looked toward my mother. My mother looked down at the table. Neither wanted to answer. That alone told me the truth would be ugly. I leaned forward. No more lies. My voice was calm, dangerously calm, the kind of calm that comes right before something breaks. No more protecting dead people. Still silence. No more deciding what I can handle. My mother finally lifted her head. Tears filled her eyes. Claire. No. I shook my head. For 35 years, everyone made decisions for me. My voice cracked. You don't get to do that anymore. The room fell silent. Finally, Evelyn took a deep breath. The man's name is Daniel Mercer. I frowned. The name meant nothing. No memory, no recognition, nothing. Who is he? Evelyn hesitated, then answered. He was your father's business partner. Business partner? That wasn't what I expected. Not even close. I glanced back at the photograph. The three people standing together suddenly looked different. Not friends, not family, something else, something complicated. What kind of business? My mother's expression darkened. Aviation logistics. The answer surprised me, because aviation was my career. The industry my father had encouraged me to enter. The field he'd spent most of his adult life working in. A strange chill moved through me. Keep talking. Evelyn nodded slowly. 36 years ago, your father and Daniel owned a small transportation company together. I listened carefully. Every instinct told me this wasn't just background information. This was important, very important. They weren't wealthy, Evelyn continued. Not yet. Yet. The older woman nodded. Everything changed after a government contract. My mother suddenly looked uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. I noticed immediately. What government contract? Neither woman answered. My pulse quickened. There it was again. Another secret, another missing piece. Evelyn finally spoke. It involved military cargo. The room felt colder. Military cargo, government contracts, business partners. This story was becoming stranger by the minute. I looked at the photograph again, at my father's face. He looked younger, nervous, almost scared. Rachel looked worried too. Only Daniel appeared confident. The realization made my stomach tighten. Rachel knew him. Evelyn nodded. Unfortunately. Unfortunately, not exactly a comforting word. What happened? The older woman stared at the table, lost in memories, painful memories. Then she spoke quietly. Rachel never trusted him. I sat forward. Why? Because she overheard something. The room seemed to shrink. Every nerve in my body sharpened. What did she overhear? Evelyn swallowed hard. A conversation. About what? Another pause. Then. Money. Not surprising. People lied for money every day. People betrayed each other for money every day. But somehow I knew that wasn't the whole story. Because if this were simply about money, nobody would look this frightened. What kind of money? My mother finally answered. The kind people go to prison for. A chill raced through me. The room fell silent again. I stared at her, waiting. My mother wiped tears from her eyes, then continued. Years before you were born, your father discovered Daniel was stealing from contracts. I blinked. Stealing. Evelyn nodded. Millions. The word echoed in my head. Millions. Suddenly the pieces began shifting, not fitting together yet, but moving, changing, creating a picture I couldn't quite see. What does that have to do with me? Neither woman answered immediately, which meant the answer was everything. Finally, Evelyn spoke. Rachel found evidence. I froze. What kind of evidence? The older woman looked directly at me. Enough to destroy Daniel's life. My heartbeat accelerated. Rachel, the young woman in the photograph, the woman who lost her daughter, the woman who spent decades searching for me, somehow she had become involved in something much bigger, something dangerous, something powerful people wanted hidden. She kept copies. Evelyn nodded. Yes. My stomach tightened. And Daniel knew. The answer came instantly. No. For the first time all evening, certainty entered Evelyn's voice. No, he never knew. That should have been comforting. Instead it wasn't, because another question immediately appeared. A much worse question. If Daniel never knew Rachel had evidence, then why had my father spent decades hiding everything? I looked directly at Evelyn. What aren't you telling me? The older woman looked away. My mother did too. There it was again, that same hesitation, that same fear, that same look people get when they're standing near a truth too dangerous to touch. The realization hit me like lightning. There was another secret, a bigger one, a worse one, something neither woman wanted to say out loud. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. What? My voice echoed through the room. What is it? Neither answered. I slammed my hand on the table. The journals jumped. The photograph slid sideways. My mother flinched. Evelyn looked close to tears. What happened? The words exploded from me. What happened to Rachel? Finally, after hours of half-truths and painful revelations, after decades of silence, after 35 years of lies, someone answered. Evelyn, her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't die the way everyone thinks. The room went completely still. Every sound vanished, every breath caught, every heartbeat seemed deafening. I stared at her, unable to process what I'd just heard. What? My voice sounded distant, foreign, wrong. Evelyn closed her eyes, as if saying the words physically hurt. The official report said heart failure. A chill moved down my spine. Official report, not she died. Official report, very different, very deliberate, very dangerous. What are you saying? The older woman's eyes filled with tears. Rachel believed someone was following her. My stomach dropped. No, this wasn't possible. This was becoming insane, following her. After 35 years, why, for what, the evidence, the old business scandal? It made no sense, unless a terrible thought appeared. I looked at the photograph again, at Daniel Mercer, at the confident smile frozen on his face, and suddenly I wasn't sure he was part of the past. Maybe he was part of the present. Is he alive? The question escaped before I could stop it. Neither woman answered immediately, which was answer enough. Oh my God. My pulse thundered. He's alive. Evelyn nodded, slowly, reluctantly. Yes. The room seemed to tilt. 36 years. 36 years since that photograph. And Daniel Mercer was still alive, still out there, still connected somehow, still important enough that grown women looked terrified mentioning his name. What does he do now? My mother inhaled sharply. Evelyn looked miserable. Then came the answer that changed everything, the answer that explained the fear, the answer that made my blood run cold. He's one of the most powerful businessmen in New England. I sat back down, hard, my knees suddenly weak. Powerful, of course. Of course he was. People like that always seemed to survive, always seemed to win, always seemed to escape consequences. I rubbed my temples. trying to think, trying to understand, trying to breathe. Then my eyes landed on something inside the box, a smaller notebook, different from the others. Black leather, worn edges, hidden beneath the journals. Something about it felt important, very important. I picked it up. Evelyn immediately went pale. "What is this?" The older woman stood so quickly her chair nearly fell over. My mother's eyes widened. Fear flashed across both faces. Real fear, the kind you cannot fake, the kind that reveals itself instantly. And suddenly I knew. Whatever was inside that notebook was the reason Rachel had kept searching, the reason my father had lied, the reason Daniel Mercer still mattered, the reason everyone was afraid. My fingers moved toward the cover. Evelyn took a step forward. "Claire." I looked up. "What?" The older woman's voice trembled. "Rachel told me never to open that journal." A chill raced through my entire body. Never open it, not even her best friend, not anyone, only me, 35 years. 35 years that notebook had remained closed, waiting, hidden, protected. My pulse thundered as I carefully opened the first page. A single handwritten sentence stared back at me. 7 words. 7 words powerful enough to drain all color from Evelyn's face. 7 words that instantly changed everything I thought I knew. The sentence read, "If you're reading this, your father wasn't the only one who lied." And beneath it there was a name I recognized immediately, a name that should have been impossible, a name belonging to someone I loved, someone I trusted, someone who had been part of my life for decades, someone who was still alive, my brother, Ethan Morgan. For a moment I thought I was hallucinating. I blinked, then blinked again. The name remained exactly where it was. Ethan Morgan, my brother, my little brother, the kid who used to follow me around the house asking endless questions. The teenager who borrowed my car without permission. The man who stood beside me at my wedding and promised he'd always have my back. My brother. My stomach twisted. "No." The word escaped before I realized I had spoken. "No." I stared at the page. The ink hadn't changed. The name hadn't disappeared. It was real, terrifyingly real. Across the table, Evelyn looked heartbroken. My mother looked like she might faint. Neither woman seemed surprised, and that told me everything. "You knew." My voice was barely audible. My mother lowered her eyes. "You knew." Tears rolled down her cheeks. I stood so suddenly my chair crashed backward onto the floor. The sound echoed through the room. Still nobody spoke. Still nobody denied it. That hurt most of all, because silence is its own confession. "Ethan knew." I looked directly at my mother. "Ethan knew." Her lips trembled. Then she nodded. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. Every memory involving my brother flashed through my mind. Birthdays, Christmases, family vacations, phone calls, graduations, 35 years of shared history. And somewhere inside all those years, he'd been carrying a secret about me, a secret about my life, a secret he never shared. The betrayal hit harder than I expected, harder than my father's lies. Harder than discovering Rachel existed. Because my father was gone. But Ethan was alive. He still had choices. And apparently he'd chosen silence. "When?" The question sounded sharp, dangerous. "When did he find out?" My mother wiped tears from her face. 8 years ago. I laughed, a broken laugh. The kind that sounds painful even to the person making it. 8 years, nearly a decade. While we exchanged birthday gifts, while we celebrated holidays, while we talked every week. 8 years. "How?" My mother swallowed hard. "After your father got sick." That made my chest tighten. Dad's cancer. The beginning of the end. The period when everything changed. "When the treatment started," she continued, "your father became afraid." Afraid, that word again. It seemed fear was the foundation of every terrible decision my father had ever made. Afraid of losing me, afraid of the truth, afraid of consequences, afraid of the past. And now I was paying the price. "What happened?" My mother glanced toward the black journal. "Ethan found documents." The room fell silent. I slowly sat down again. Every emotion inside me felt raw, exposed, unstable. "What documents?" My mother hesitated, then answered. Letters. Rachel's letters, of course. The letters my father had hidden. The letters he'd answered without my knowledge. The letters that should have come to me, not him, me. I clenched my fists. So Ethan discovered everything. My mother nodded. Almost everything. Almost another missing piece. Another puzzle, another secret. I hated that word, almost, because it meant there was still more. There was always more. I looked back at the journal, at the page carrying Ethan's name, at Rachel's handwriting. Then I continued reading. The entry was dated 7 years earlier. 1 year after Ethan discovered the letters, my pulse quickened. The handwriting was shaky, more fragile than the earlier journals. Rachel had clearly aged, yet every word carried urgency, emotion, desperation. I began reading aloud. Today I received a call I never expected. The room grew quiet. A young man named Ethan Morgan contacted me. My throat tightened. Ethan had called her, not written, not emailed, called, actually spoken to her. My hands trembled. I kept reading. For the first time in decades, someone from Claire's family told me the truth. Tears filled my eyes. The truth. The very thing I'd been denied my entire life. Rachel learned it from my brother before I did. That realization hurt in ways I couldn't explain. I continued. Ethan sounded kind. The sentence made me pause because it sounded exactly like Ethan. Kind, patient, compassionate. The brother I thought I knew, the brother I still wanted to believe in. He apologized for what happened. I swallowed hard. Rachel wrote that Ethan cried during the conversation. Actually cried. He told her he had only recently learned the truth himself. He told her he was angry, confused, heartbroken. He promised he would help. I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to feel relieved. Part of me wanted to forgive him immediately, but another part couldn't stop asking the obvious question, if he wanted to help. Why didn't he tell me? Why wait 8 years? Why stay silent? The question burned inside me. I turned the page. Then everything changed. A new entry 3 weeks later. The handwriting looked rushed, uneven, afraid. I began reading, and with every sentence my heartbeat accelerated. Ethan called again today. I continued. He sounded frightened. Frightened, not sad, not emotional, frightened. The distinction mattered, a lot. I kept reading. He told me someone knows we spoke. The room seemed to shrink. Every nerve in my body sharpened. Someone knows. I looked up. Neither Evelyn nor my mother appeared surprised, which meant they'd read this, or heard it before, or feared it themselves. I returned to the journal. Ethan asked me to be careful. A chill moved through me. He said there are things about Daniel Mercer that I don't understand. The words hit like ice water. Daniel again, always Daniel. Every road seemed to lead back to him, every mystery, every lie, every secret, the man in the photograph, the man Rachel never trusted, the powerful businessman still alive. The name appeared everywhere. I continued reading. Ethan said my evidence may be more important than I realized. Evidence, there it was again. The mysterious evidence Rachel discovered decades ago. The evidence connected to Daniel. The evidence my father apparently knew about. The evidence powerful enough to frighten people. I turned another page, then froze. My stomach dropped instantly. The next entry was dated only 3 months before Rachel died. 3 months, after years of silence. After decades of searching. After 35 years. Something had happened. Something significant. The handwriting reflected it. The words looked rushed. Urgent, terrified, I began reading. I finally found it. The sentence sent chills through me. Found what? I read faster. After all these years, I finally found what Daniel has been hiding. My pulse thundered. Evelyn leaned forward. My mother covered her mouth. I continued. If anything happens to me, Claire deserves the truth. The room fell completely silent. No one breathed. No one moved. I turned the page and found a folded note tucked inside. Different paper. Different handwriting. Not Rachel's. My heart nearly stopped. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was immediately recognizable, even after all these years, because I'd seen it countless times. Birthday cards, Christmas notes, letters, postcards, legal documents, my brother's handwriting. Ethan's. The note contained only one sentence. One sentence powerful enough to send terror racing through my entire body. Rachel, He's watching everyone now. I stared at the words, again and again and again. The room felt ice cold. My brother had written this, not Rachel, not my father, ETHAN, the same brother who had kept the secret, the same brother who had contacted Rachel, the same brother who apparently became frightened. Watching everyone, who, Daniel, someone else, my mind raced. Questions collided with questions. Nothing made sense. Yet somehow everything felt connected. I looked at EVELYN. When did ETHAN stop talking to her? The older woman answered immediately. About 2 years ago. 2 years, a long time, too long. What happened? EVELYN looked uncomfortable. Then she sighed. Rachel said he suddenly disappeared. My stomach tightened. Disappeared, just like that. No explanation, no goodbye, no warning. Gone. Exactly like my father had once vanished from Rachel's life. A horrible feeling settled inside me. What if something happened to him? My mother immediately shook her head. No. But her voice lacked conviction. I noticed. So did EVELYN. What aren't you telling me? Neither woman answered. Again, always silence, always hesitation, always fear. I was beginning to hate all of it. Then something fell from the back cover of the journal. A photograph, newer than the others, much newer, maybe 2 years old. I picked it up, and my heart stopped. The photograph showed ETHAN standing beside Rachel, both smiling, both alive, both looking nervous, as if they expected someone might be watching. Behind them was a building, a tall office building, modern, glass exterior. Corporate. I flipped the photograph over. A handwritten note covered the back. My breath caught. The note was written by Rachel. It read, "The answers are inside. ETHAN says Daniel visits every Thursday." A chill exploded through my body. I stared at the building, then at the note, then back at the building. Something clicked. A realization, small at first, then impossible to ignore. Rachel hadn't been looking backward anymore. She'd been investigating, recently, actively, right before her death. Whatever she discovered wasn't ancient history. It wasn't 35 years old. It was current, ongoing, alive. And somehow ETHAN had been helping her. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot, too crowded. I grabbed my phone. My mother frowned. "What are you doing?" I looked directly at her, then at EVELYN, then at the photograph, at ETHAN, at Rachel, at the office building, at the note, at the warning, at all the lies, at all the secrets, at 35 years of stolen truth. Finally, I answered. "I'm calling ETHAN." My mother immediately went pale. EVELYN looked terrified, but neither reaction prepared me for what happened next, because the moment I dialed my brother's number, a phone began ringing. Inside the house, not outside, not through my speaker. Inside the house, close, very close. The ringing came from upstairs, and suddenly every hair on my body stood up, because ETHAN was supposed to be in Chicago, hundreds of miles away, yet somehow his phone was ringing inside my mother's house. And none of us knew why. The ringing continued. Once, twice, 3 times, every sound echoed through the house. No one moved, no one spoke. My phone remained pressed against my ear while ETHAN's ringtone drifted from somewhere upstairs. A ringtone I recognized instantly, because I'd heard it hundreds of times. Family dinners, birthday parties, holiday gatherings. It was ETHAN's phone. There was no doubt, yet ETHAN was supposed to be in Chicago. He had texted me from Chicago 3 days earlier. He had called our mother from Chicago 2 nights earlier. At least that's what everyone believed. The ringing stopped. The silence that followed felt even worse. I slowly lowered my phone. My heart was hammering. What the hell was that? My mother looked terrified. Actually terrified, not guilty, not defensive, terrified. I don't know. For the first time all night, I believed her. EVELYN looked equally shocked, which meant neither woman expected this. Neither woman had planned it. Neither woman understood it. The phone suddenly started ringing again. This time everyone heard it clearly. Upstairs, 2nd floor, near the bedrooms, my pulse exploded. I stood immediately. My chair tipped backward. Neither woman tried to stop me. Neither woman followed. I started toward the staircase. Every step felt heavier than the last. The old wooden stairs creaked beneath my feet. The house felt different now. Not like my childhood home, not like a place filled with memories. It felt like a crime scene, a museum of lies, a building packed with secrets waiting to be discovered. The ringing stopped again. I reached the second-floor landing. The hallway stretched ahead. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a small storage closet, nothing unusual, nothing obvious. Yet somewhere nearby was my brother's phone. My hands trembled. I moved slowly. Listening, searching. Then a faint vibration, buzz, buzz, buzz. The sound came from my father's old office, the room he used before cancer stole his strength. The room my mother had barely touched since his death. The room nobody entered anymore. A cold sensation crept down my spine. I walked toward the door, pushed it open. The familiar smell hit immediately. Old books, wood polish, paper, memories. The office looked exactly the same. The desk, the bookshelf, the framed photographs, everything frozen in time. For a moment, grief overwhelmed everything else. I could almost see him sitting there, reading, working, smiling, the father I loved, the father who lied. The contradiction hurt every single time. Buzz, the vibration sounded again, closer now. I followed it, the desk, a cabinet, a drawer. No, the sound seemed lower, behind something. I looked around. Then noticed an old cardboard file box beneath the desk. My pulse quickened. I knelt down, pulled it forward. Dust covered the lid. The box looked untouched, forgotten, abandoned. The vibration came again, definitely inside. I opened the lid and immediately froze because ETHANQUOTE's phone wasn't the only thing inside, far from it. The phone sat on top of a stack of folders, powered on, charging from a portable battery pack, as if someone expected it to remain hidden for a long time. My stomach dropped. Someone had placed it here deliberately, very deliberately. I grabbed the phone. The lock screen illuminated. Dozens of missed calls, messages, notifications. The last activity occurred only 6 hours earlier. 6 hours, not days, not weeks, hours. Meaning someone had used the phone recently, very recently. My heart pounded. Then I noticed the folders. One folder carried a name written in black marker. ETHAN another. Rachel another. Daniel Mercer. The room suddenly felt smaller. I stared at the labels, unable to breathe, unable to think. Unable to understand why these files were hidden inside my father's office. Then I heard footsteps behind me. My mother, Evelyn, both standing in the doorway, both staring at the box, and both looking horrified. My mother covered her mouth. Oh God. The reaction told me everything. She had never seen this before, neither had Evelyn. This discovery was new for everyone. I reached for the first folder, ETHAN. The paper inside looked recent, far more recent than my father's death. Most documents were dated within the last 3 years. That made no sense. My father had been gone for 3 years, who kept updating the file. My pulse accelerated. I opened the folder. The first page contained phone records. The second contained photographs. The third contained travel information. My stomach twisted. Someone had been tracking ETHAN, tracking him, watching him, documenting him, every flight, every hotel, every meeting, every movement. The realization made my skin crawl. Who did this? Nobody answered because nobody knew. I continued flipping pages. Then I reached a photograph, and my heart nearly stopped. The image showed ETHAN entering the same office building from Rachel's photograph. The same glass tower, the same building, the same mystery. A date was printed in the corner, 8 months ago. Rachel wasn't the only one investigating. ETHAN had been there too, many times. I looked at the next photograph, then the next, then the next. Each one showed ETHAN visiting the building. Sometimes alone, sometimes with Rachel, always looking cautious, always appearing nervous, as if they knew someone might be watching. A terrible feeling settled over me. They weren't paranoid. Someone actually was watching them. The evidence sat right in front of me, documented, organized, hidden. I opened the next folder. Rachel, my hands shook. The contents were even worse. Photographs, notes, addresses, dates, schedules. 35 years after losing her daughter, someone had been monitoring Rachel's life. Systematically, methodically, relentlessly, my stomach churned. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't curiosity. This was surveillance, real surveillance. The realization horrified me. Rachel had been right. Someone had been watching, for years, maybe decades. I looked up at Evelyn. The older woman's face had turned pale. When did she start saying people were following her? Evelyn swallowed hard. About 3 years ago. 3 years, the exact period these files covered. My pulse thundered. Then something else caught my eye. A photograph tucked near the back. I pulled it free, and immediately felt the room tilt sideways, because the person standing beside Rachel wasn't Ethan. It wasn't Daniel. It wasn't my father. It was my sister. Madison, my chest tightened. No, 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 not Madison too, not another person, not another betrayal. The photograph showed Madison and Rachel sitting together at an outdoor cafe, talking. Smiling, looking familiar, comfortable, as if they'd known each other for some time, I stared in disbelief. My sister had met Rachel, actually met her, and never told me. The realization felt like another knife. Slow, sharp, precise. I looked toward my mother. Her expression answered the question before I asked it. She knew. Of course she knew. Everyone knew except me. Everyone, my voice shook. Madison knew too. My mother began crying. That was answer enough. I laughed bitterly. The sound hurt. Everything hurt. Who didn't know? The question echoed through the room. Nobody answered because there wasn't an answer. I felt isolated in a way I'd never experienced before. 35 years inside a family, yet somehow I was the last person informed about my own life. The last. The realization was devastating. I opened another folder. This one had no label. Inside was a small notebook. Different handwriting. Neater, more precise. I immediately recognized it. Madison's. My sister had always written carefully. Every letter perfect. Every line organized. The notebook opened easily. The first page contained a date, 2 years earlier. Then a sentence, one simple sentence, a sentence that drained every bit of warmth from my body. Claire can never find out until we're sure. I stared at the words, again and again and again. Madison wrote them, not my father, not my mother, Madison, my own sister, the woman who called me every Sunday, the woman who helped plan my wedding, the woman who comforted me after Dad died. She had written those words. I turned the page, more notes, dozens of pages, observations, meetings, questions, investigations. Every entry connected to Rachel, Daniel, Ethan, and something else, something nobody had mentioned before, a name. Repeated again and again, the same name appearing throughout the notebook. I had never heard it before. Yet Madison clearly considered it important, very important. The name was Project Falcon. My pulse accelerated. What was Project Falcon? A company, a code name, a legal case? The notebook never explained, at least not immediately, but every path seemed to lead toward it. Every investigation, every meeting, every concern. Project Falcon, Project Falcon, Project Falcon. The phrase appeared everywhere. Then I reached the final entry, the last thing Madison wrote. The words were rushed, uneven, afraid, unlike her usual handwriting, as if she'd written them in a hurry or under pressure, or both. I read silently, and felt every muscle in my body go rigid. The final sentence said, "If Ethan disappears, Clara's next." The room went silent, completely silent. No one moved, no one breathed, no one spoke. My mother looked ready to collapse. Evelyn sat down heavily, and I simply stared at the page, unable to process what I was seeing, because this wasn't family drama anymore. This wasn't adoption. This wasn't old heartbreak. This wasn't ancient history. Something was happening now, in the present. And somehow my brother had vanished. My sister had been investigating. Rachel was dead. And according to Madison's own handwriting, I was in danger. Then suddenly Ethan's phone vibrated in my hand. A new message appeared on the screen. Unknown number. My heart stopped. The message contained only 6 words. 6 words that instantly turned the blood in my veins to ice. Stop reading. Leave the house now. And before I could react, the lights throughout the entire house went out. Darkness swallowed the house instantly. 1 second, the office was illuminated by warm yellow light. The next, nothing. Absolute darkness. My mother screamed. Evelyn gasped. Somewhere downstairs, a picture frame crashed onto the floor. The sound shattered the silence. My heart nearly exploded. Instinctively, I tightened my grip on Ethan's phone. The glowing screen became the only source of light in the room. Its pale blue glow illuminated terrified faces. My mother's, Evelyn's, and my own reflection in the dark office window. For a moment, nobody moved, nobody spoke. The warning message burned on the screen. Stop reading. Leave the house now, not tomorrow, not soon, now. A chill crawled through every inch of my body. The timing couldn't be coincidence. Someone knew what we were doing. Someone knew we had found the files. Someone knew we were reading them. And now the power was out. My mother grabbed my arm. "Claire." Her voice trembled. "We need to leave." Normally, I would have agreed. Normally, I would have listened. But something had changed inside me. 35 years of lies, 35 years of secrets, 35 years of decisions made without my consent. I was finished running, finished being protected, Finished being manipulated. No. The word came out stronger than I expected. My mother stared. What? I looked down at the phone, at the message, at the darkness surrounding us, then back at her. I'm not leaving. The sentence shocked everyone, including me, but it was true. I wasn't leaving. Not this time. Not when I was finally close to the truth. Not when Rachel had spent her entire life searching for answers. Not when Ethan had disappeared. Not when Madison had warned that I might be next. No, I was staying, whatever happened. Evelyn swallowed hard. Claire, please. I shook my head. Then another vibration rattled Ethan's phone. Everyone jumped. A second message appeared. Unknown number. You have 10 minutes. My pulse thundered. 10 minutes, for what? To leave, to hide, to prepare. The message didn't explain, it didn't need to, the threat was obvious. I opened the conversation. No previous messages, no identifying information. Nothing. Whoever sent it knew how to remain invisible. That realization scared me more than the warning itself, because invisible people are difficult to fight, difficult to predict, difficult to stop. A loud thump echoed somewhere downstairs. Everyone froze. My mother grabbed my arm tighter. What was that? Nobody answered because nobody knew. Another sound followed, a door, opening, then closing slowly, deliberately. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. Someone was inside the house. The realization hit all three of us simultaneously. I saw it in their faces, the fear, the understanding, the certainty. We weren't alone. Evelyn whispered something, a prayer, maybe, I couldn't tell. I stepped toward the office doorway, listening. Every nerve in my body screamed at me to stop, to run, to hide. Instead, I moved forward, one careful step at a time. The hallway remained dark, silent, empty. At least it appeared empty. The problem with darkness is that it hides everything, including danger, especially danger. Then a beam of light appeared below, a flashlight, someone downstairs, moving through the house, searching. The realization nearly stopped my heart. My mother let out a quiet cry. The flashlight moved across a wall, then disappeared, then appeared again, slowly, methodically. Like whoever held it knew exactly where they were going. My childhood home suddenly felt unfamiliar, hostile, dangerous, a place filled with shadows and secrets. Then Ethan's phone vibrated again. Another message. This one different, much different, my breath caught, because it wasn't from the unknown number. The sender name displayed clearly. Madison, my sister. I opened it immediately. The message contained only one sentence. Don't trust anyone in the house. The world tilted sideways. My sister who knew Rachel, my sister who investigated Project Falcon, my sister whose notebook predicted danger. She was texting me. At 1:14 in the morning, while someone moved through the house, I quickly typed back, "Where are you?" The response arrived almost instantly, too quickly, as if she'd been waiting. Not safe to explain. My pulse accelerated. Another message followed. Did you find Dad's files? I stared, then typed, yes. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again, finally. Then you're in more danger than I thought. A horrible feeling settled inside me. I looked toward my mother. Toward Evelyn, toward the dark hallway. The warning from Madison echoed inside my head. Don't trust anyone in the house. Anyone. That included my mother. The realization made me sick. Could I trust her? Had I ever been able to trust her? I didn't know anymore. The uncertainty hurt almost as much as the lies. Then another text arrived. Find the red folder. I frowned. Red folder? What red folder? The office contained dozens of documents. Boxes, files, notes. No obvious red folder. I typed quickly. What folder? Madison's answer came immediately. Dad hid it behind the bookshelf. My heart stopped. Behind the bookshelf. I slowly turned toward the massive wooden bookshelf lining one wall of the office. The shelf hadn't moved in years, maybe decades. Dust covered its edges. Family photographs sat between books. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. Yet suddenly it looked different, important. My pulse quickened. I handed Ethan's phone to Evelyn. Hold this. Then crossed the room. The bookshelf was enormous, solid oak. Heavy, far too heavy for one person. Yet when I pushed, it moved, only slightly. But enough. Enough to reveal a narrow gap behind it. A hidden space. My breath caught. My father had created a secret compartment, inside his office, inside our home. The realization stunned me. My mother looked equally shocked. I never knew. For once, I believed her. Together, Evelyn and I pushed harder. The bookshelf shifted farther. A narrow opening appeared. And there, exactly where Madison said, was a single red folder. Waiting, hidden, protected, for years. My hands trembled as I reached for it. The folder felt surprisingly heavy. Thick, packed, important, very important. I carried it to the desk, opened it, and immediately understood why my father hid it. Because the very first page contained a photograph. Not Rachel. Not Ethan, not Daniel, me, a baby picture, my baby picture, attached to a government document. My pulse thundered. I turned the page, another document, then another, then another. Every page carried the same title. Project Falcon. The words seemed unreal, like something from a movie, yet there they were, printed repeatedly, officially, professionally. My hands shook harder. I flipped through pages. Contracts, names, financial records, flight manifests, military transportation reports. The deeper I read, the worse it became. Much worse. Rachel hadn't uncovered simple financial fraud, not even close. Project Falcon involved something far larger, something far more dangerous. Millions of dollars, missing cargo, false reports, fake transportation records, and every road led back to Daniel Mercer, every single one. But then I reached a page that made my blood freeze. A list of names, dozens of names, employees, witnesses, contractors, investigators. People connected to Project Falcon. Some names were highlighted, some crossed out, some marked with dates. And beside several names was one word: deceased. My breathing stopped. I read the page again, then again, then again. Too many names, far too many. People connected to the project had been dying for years. Accidents, heart attacks, disappearances. The explanations varied. The pattern did not. A terrible realization formed. Rachel wasn't paranoid. Neither was Ethan. Neither was Madison. Someone really had been eliminating problems. Quietly, carefully, systematically. Then I reached the final page. A single handwritten note, written by my father. I recognized his handwriting immediately. The sight alone nearly broke me. For a moment I remembered the man who taught me to ride a bicycle, the man who hugged me after nightmares, the man who loved me, the man who lied. The contradiction still hurt. I looked down and read. The note contained only one paragraph. One paragraph that changed everything. If anything happens to me, Daniel will come for the evidence. If Rachel finds the truth, she will be in danger. If Claire learns the truth, she must know one thing. My throat tightened. The final sentence waited below. Alone, underlined, terrifying, I read it aloud. Claire was never the secret. The room fell silent. My pulse thundered. I stared at the words, trying to understand, trying to process, trying to breathe. Claire was never the secret. Then what was? Before anyone could answer, a loud crash exploded downstairs. Glass shattered, wood splintered, my mother screamed, Evelyn jumped. And a man's voice echoed through the darkness. A voice none of us recognized. Cold, calm, dangerously calm. Find the folder. Every muscle in my body locked. Because whoever was downstairs didn't come for me, didn't come for Rachel, didn't come for Ethan. He came for Project Falcon. And now he knew exactly where we were. The voice downstairs echoed through the darkness. Find the folder. Not angry, not panicked, not rushed. Calm, professional, the kind of calm that comes from experience. The kind that belongs to someone who has done this before. A chill spread through my body because whoever was downstairs wasn't improvising. He knew exactly what he wanted. And he knew exactly where to look. The red folder. Project Falcon. The truth. My mother stood frozen beside the doorway. Evelyn looked close to collapse. And for the first time all night, I realized something terrifying. We were completely unprepared. No weapons, no plan, no idea who was downstairs, no idea how many people might be with him. Nothing, just 3 frightened women and 35 years of buried secrets. The crash downstairs was followed by footsteps, slow, steady, coming toward the staircase. My pulse exploded. They're coming up. The realization hit all of us at once. I looked around desperately. The office, the hidden compartment, the desk. Then my eyes landed on the back wall, a small door. Almost invisible. I remembered it immediately. Storage space. My father kept old records there, nothing important, or so I thought. Inside. My voice came out sharp. Urgent. My mother and Evelyn didn't argue. We rushed toward the small room. I pulled the door shut behind us. Darkness surrounded us again. The only light came from Ethan's phone. Its faint glow illuminated shelves packed with boxes. Dust floated through the air. The cramped space smelled old, forgotten. Abandoned, we held our breath. Outside, footsteps entered the office. The floorboards creaked. Someone was there, someone close, very close. I felt my heartbeat pounding against my ribs. The silence outside lasted several seconds. Then a drawer opened. Another, papers shuffled. Cabinets moved. The stranger was searching, methodically, patiently. The sound made my skin crawl. Meanwhile, I clutched the red folder against my chest. The folder everyone seemed willing to risk everything for. Rachel, my father, Ethan, Madison, and now whoever was upstairs. The realization was impossible to ignore. Whatever Project Falcon contained, it was worth protecting. Worth hiding, maybe even worth killing for. My stomach twisted. I opened the folder again, carefully, quietly. If someone was risking so much to find it, I needed answers. Now, not tomorrow, not later. Now. The first pages contained financial records, complicated, dense, difficult to understand. But eventually a pattern emerged. Missing shipments, false invoices, fake transportation routes. Millions of dollars disappearing through a maze of shell companies. My father had highlighted several sections, circled others, added handwritten notes. The deeper I read, the clearer the picture became. Daniel Mercer hadn't simply stolen money. He'd built an empire on fraud, an empire powerful enough to survive decades, powerful enough to silence people, powerful enough to make evidence disappear. Yet even that wasn't the real secret. I could feel it. The answer was still buried deeper. Then I found a sealed envelope, different from everything else. Across the front, written in Rachel's handwriting, were 6 words. For Claire, when she knows. My throat tightened. I carefully opened it. Inside was a letter, several pages long. My hands trembled because this wasn't evidence. This wasn't an investigation. This was Rachel, talking directly to me for the first time. I began reading. My dearest Claire, if you're reading this, then I wasn't able to tell you myself. That thought breaks my heart more than you can imagine. For 35 years, I dreamed of meeting you. I imagined your first day of school, your first heartbreak, your graduation, your wedding, every birthday, every Christmas, every ordinary Tuesday. I wondered if you were happy. I wondered if you were safe. I wondered if you ever thought about me. Tears blurred my vision. I wiped them away and continued. I know you probably have questions. You deserve answers. More answers than anyone ever gave you. The truth is this: your father loved you. I need you to believe that. He made terrible choices. Selfish choices, cowardly choices, but he loved you. A lump formed in my throat. Because despite everything, part of me needed to hear that, needed it desperately. I continued. For years I believed your father was the reason I lost you. Then I discovered something worse. My pulse quickened. The words that followed changed everything. He wasn't the one making decisions. I stopped breathing. Outside the storage room, the stranger continued searching. But suddenly I barely heard him. My entire focus narrowed to Rachel's letter. I read faster. For years I blamed your father. Then I found evidence proving he was being threatened. Someone forced his silence. Someone powerful, someone dangerous. Someone who feared the truth more than exposure. Daniel, it had to be Daniel, had to. I continued. Your father spent decades protecting you, not from me, from them, plural, not one person, more than one. The realization sent a chill through me. Then came the sentence that made my heart stop. Claire, your existence was never the secret. Your birth was. I stared. Unable to move, unable to think, unable to understand. My birth, what did that mean? The answer appeared on the next page, and it shattered everything. The day you were born, I witnessed something I was never supposed to see. My pulse thundered. I continued reading. I accidentally discovered documents connected to Project Falcon. I copied them because I was afraid. When Daniel learned evidence was missing, he began searching. Your father helped me hide the copies. But Daniel eventually learned I had them. Outside, footsteps moved closer. I barely noticed. Every word pulled me deeper. After you were born, Daniel demanded the evidence. I refused. That was when the threats began. My stomach tightened. Threats. Real threats. Not paranoia, not imagination. Real. At first I thought he wanted the documents. Then I learned the truth. My hands trembled because Rachel's handwriting changed. The lines became shakier, more emotional, more urgent. As if even decades later the memory frightened her. Then I reached the sentence. The sentence she had spent 35 years protecting. The sentence my father died carrying. The sentence Ethan and Madison risked everything to uncover. Daniel believed I left proof somewhere he could never find it. I frowned. What proof? The documents? The evidence? No. Rachel clarified immediately. He was wrong. My pulse accelerated. Then came the next sentence. And suddenly the room felt too small, too hot, too impossible. The proof wasn't hidden in a place. I stared, confused. then read the final line, the line that changed everything. The proof was hidden in a person. My breathing stopped. The letter slipped slightly in my hands. A person, not a place, not a file, not a safe. A person. My mind raced. Who? Rachel, Ethan, Madison, me? The realization struck like lightning. My father's note, Rachel's warning, everything connected at once. Claire was never the secret. My birth was. The proof was hidden in a person. A cold wave swept through me. No, 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 that wasn't possible, was it? Then I noticed something folded inside the final page. A photograph, small, old, hidden. I unfolded it carefully and felt my entire world tilt sideways because the photograph wasn't of me. It wasn't Rachel. It wasn't my father. It wasn't Ethan. It wasn't Madison. It was Daniel Mercer, much younger, standing beside a government aircraft, and in his arms a metal case. A military transport case. The exact case number was visible, highlighted, circled, marked repeatedly. Rachel had written beside it. This is what started everything. My pulse thundered. The case, the cargo, the missing shipment, the origin of Project Falcon. Somehow all roads led back to that container. Then I noticed another note, tiny, almost hidden, written beneath the photograph. The words drained every bit of color from my face. Ask Madison about Flight 728. Madison, again, always Madison. My sister clearly knew something critical, something Rachel wanted me to learn. A sudden vibration interrupted my thoughts. Ethan's phone. Another text, from Madison. I opened it instantly. 3 words, that's all. 3 words that made my blood run cold. They found Ethan. The room spun. Found where? Alive, dead, captured. The questions exploded through my mind. I typed frantically. What happened? The reply arrived seconds later, and I wished it hadn't, because the answer changed everything. He's alive, but they're using him. I stared again and again, and again, using him. What did that even mean? Before I could ask, a loud bang exploded outside the storage room. The door to the office slammed open. Heavy footsteps entered, more than one person. At least 3, maybe 4, voices followed. Low, controlled, professional, searching, closer now, much closer. My mother covered her mouth. Evelyn squeezed her eyes shut, and I sat frozen with Rachel's letter in my hands, trying desperately to understand one impossible question. If the proof was hidden inside a person, who was that person? Then suddenly another folded paper slipped from Rachel's letter. A final page, one I hadn't seen before, one apparently hidden deliberately. My hands shook as I opened it, and there, written in bold black ink, was the answer Rachel had protected for 35 years. A single sentence. A single devastating sentence. A sentence powerful enough to explain every lie. Every secret, every disappearance, every betrayal. The sentence read, Claire, if you're reading this, Daniel Mercer is your biological father. The footsteps outside stopped. The storage room felt impossibly silent, and for the second time in 24 hours, my entire life shattered. For several seconds I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move. The words blurred before my eyes. Daniel Mercer is your biological father. No, 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 my mind rejected it immediately. The sentence felt impossible, wrong, absurd, cruel. I read it again, then again, and again. The words never changed. My heart hammered so violently I thought it might burst. The room felt smaller, the air thinner. Everything around me seemed distant, muted, unreal. My father wasn't my father again. Another identity ripped away, another truth destroyed. Another foundation collapsing beneath my feet. I looked down at Rachel's handwriting, the familiar loops and curves, the ink she had placed on paper years earlier. A message intended only for me, and somehow she had saved the most devastating revelation for last. My entire body trembled. Beside me, my mother stared at the letter, her face drained of color. Evelyn looked equally shocked. Neither woman had known, that much was obvious. The revelation had blindsided them too. For the first time all night, we shared the exact same expression, pure disbelief. Then a terrible realization struck me. If Daniel Mercer was my biological father, then everything changed. Everything, the adoption, the lies, the secrecy, the threats, the surveillance, all of it. Suddenly, it wasn't just about Rachel. It wasn't just about stolen evidence. It wasn't just about Project Falcon. It was personal, deeply personal. The truth hit like ice water. Daniel hadn't spent 35 years searching for documents. He'd spent 35 years searching for me. The realization made my stomach twist. Outside the storage room, voices continued moving through the office. searching, getting closer, but I barely heard them. Because my entire understanding of my life was being rewritten. Again, I looked back at the letter, searching desperately for answers. Anything, some explanation, some context, some reason. Then I noticed additional pages folded behind the final note. Pages I hadn't seen before, my pulse quickened. I unfolded them carefully. Rachel's handwriting filled every inch. This wasn't a letter anymore. It was a confession, the truth she'd spent decades protecting. I began reading. Claire, if you learn the truth, you must understand something. I never intended for this to happen. I never intended for you to carry this burden. I wanted you to have a normal life, the life I couldn't give you. Tears blurred my vision. I continued. When I met Daniel Mercer, I believed he was charming, successful, ambitious. I was young enough to mistake those things for goodness. The words hurt, because I recognized the regret between every line. Rachel wasn't writing about love. She was writing about mistakes. Painful mistakes, life-changing mistakes. By the time I discovered who he really was, I was already pregnant. My chest tightened. So Daniel knew, of course he knew. The realization sent a chill through me. I continued. Daniel never wanted a child. He wanted control. He wanted loyalty. He wanted silence. Outside the room, a drawer slammed shut. Someone cursed quietly, still searching, still looking, still hunting. But Rachel's words held me captive. When I discovered evidence connected to Project Falcon, everything changed. Daniel became afraid. More afraid than I had ever seen him. I turned the page. My pulse accelerated. The next paragraph explained why. Flight 728 was never supposed to exist. The sentence made my stomach tighten. Flight 728. The name Rachel had written beneath the photograph. The mystery Madison knew about. The mystery Ethan investigated. The mystery everyone feared. I read faster. Officially, Flight 728 transported military equipment. Unofficially, it transported something else. A chill crawled up my spine, something valuable enough to kill for. My breathing slowed. The room seemed to shrink around me. Rachel continued. The shipment disappeared. Millions vanished. Records vanished. Witnesses vanished. Daniel built his fortune afterward. There it was, the missing piece, the beginning of everything. Project Falcon wasn't just fraud, it was theft, massive theft. The kind capable of creating fortunes. The kind capable of destroying lives. The kind capable of corrupting entire systems. Yet Rachel wasn't finished, not even close. I turned another page and found the sentence that explained my father's role. The man I had loved all my life. The man who raised me. The man who lied. The man who wasn't actually my father. Your father wasn't your biological father, but he chose you anyway. A sob escaped me. Unexpected, sharp, painful, because despite everything, despite the lies, despite the deception, despite the betrayal, part of me still loved him, always would. Rachel continued. He offered to help me escape. He offered to protect you. He offered to disappear with the evidence. My throat tightened. For the first time, I began seeing a different version of the story. Not a perfect man, not a villain, a flawed man, a frightened man. A man trying to protect people while making terrible choices. The realization hurt, but it also felt true. Rachel wrote, Daniel believed your father took the evidence. He never imagined the truth. The truth, always the truth. I leaned closer, reading every word. The evidence wasn't in the files. The evidence wasn't in the photographs. The evidence wasn't in the documents. My pulse thundered. Then came the sentence. The sentence everything seemed to orbit around. The evidence was hidden inside the passenger manifest of Flight 728. I frowned. Passenger manifest, a list of passengers. That didn't make sense. Why would that matter? Rachel explained immediately. The manifest proved someone boarded the aircraft who officially did not exist. A chill raced through me. Someone who officially did not exist. The implications were enormous. Government records, fake identities, missing people, theft, cover-ups. Suddenly, Project Falcon felt far bigger than money, far bigger than corruption. Then I reached the next page, and my hands started shaking, because Rachel had included a copy of part of the manifest. Old, faded, damaged. Readable, mostly. Dozens of names filled the page, then one name appeared highlighted, circled repeatedly. Rachel had drawn arrows toward it. Written notes around it, underlined it, obsessed over it. I looked closer, and my heart stopped, because I recognized the name immediately. The highlighted passenger was Daniel Mercer. My pulse exploded. No, that couldn't be right. Daniel couldn't be on the manifest. Daniel owned the company. He wasn't supposed to be a passenger. Rachel's notes surrounded the name. One sentence stood out, written in capital letters. He lied about where he was that day. I stared again and again and again. Daniel claimed he wasn't there, yet the manifest proved otherwise. The realization hit hard, very hard, because suddenly Flight 728 wasn't just business, it wasn't just theft, it wasn't just fraud. Daniel himself had been present, personally, directly, physically. Whatever happened aboard that aircraft, he witnessed it. Maybe even orchestrated it. A terrible feeling settled in my chest. Then I noticed one final note. Small, almost hidden, written near the bottom of the page. The handwriting wasn't Rachel's. It belonged to someone else, someone familiar. My breath caught, because it was Ethan's. I recognized it immediately. The note contained only 5 words that changed everything. The passenger wasn't Daniel. I froze. What? I read it again, then again. The passenger wasn't Daniel. The highlighted name said Daniel Mercer, yet Ethan claimed otherwise, meaning the manifest was fake or altered or hiding someone. The realization struck like lightning. The passenger used Daniel's identity, but wasn't actually Daniel. Someone impersonated him, someone important, someone dangerous, someone connected to everything. My pulse thundered. I flipped the page and found Ethan's explanation. A short handwritten note. Hurried, urgent, desperate. Claire, if you find this, don't trust the manifest. Daniel didn't steal Flight 728, he covered it up. Someone higher up ordered it, the room spun. Higher up, higher than Daniel Mercer, impossible. Daniel was the powerful one, the untouchable one, the man everyone feared. Yet Ethan believed someone stood above him, someone even more dangerous. Then I read the final line. The final sentence Ethan ever wrote inside the file, and every hair on my body stood up. The person behind Flight 728 has been inside our family for decades. Silence, complete silence. My pulse hammered. Inside our family. No, that wasn't possible, was it? I looked toward my mother, toward Evelyn, toward the dark room beyond the door, trying to make sense of it, trying to understand. Then suddenly Ethan's phone vibrated again. The screen illuminated the darkness. Another message from Madison. I opened it immediately and felt the blood drain from my face. Because this time it wasn't a warning, it wasn't a clue, it wasn't a question, it was a photograph, a recent photograph, taken only hours earlier. The image showed Ethan, alive, bound to a chair, bruised, terrified, looking directly into the camera. My breath caught. Beneath the image was a single sentence. A sentence from Madison. A sentence that shattered everything I thought I knew. He's not their prisoner, Claire. I stared, confused, horrified, unable to understand. Then the second message arrived, and suddenly everything became worse, much worse. Ethan put himself there. Outside the storage room, the footsteps stopped. The house fell silent, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I wondered if my brother had been hiding something even bigger than the rest of us. The message from Madison stayed on the screen like a wound that refused to close. Ethan put himself there. I read it again, and again. Each time hopping the words would rearrange themselves into something less impossible. They didn't. The storage room felt suffocating now, too small, too quiet. Even the footsteps outside the office had stopped. No searching, no movement, no voices, just silence. The kind of silence that means someone is listening. My mother stood frozen beside me. Evelyn hadn't spoken in minutes, and I couldn't decide what scared me more, the truth in front of me, or the truth still waiting to be revealed. Ethan, my brother, alive, captured, and somehow responsible for it. That didn't fit the Ethan I knew, the Ethan I loved, the Ethan who forgot my birthday once and apologized for a week, the Ethan who cried at my wedding speech, the Ethan who held my hand after Dad's funeral, unless I never really knew him at all. A faint vibration pulled me back. Ethan's phone. Another message from Madison. I opened it. Only one line. He's trying to fix what Dad started. My chest tightened. Fix it? Fix what? Flight 728? Project Falcon, the lies, the deaths, the silence. Before I could respond, a new sound cut through the house. A slow clap from downstairs, deliberate, unhurried, confident. My blood turned cold. The same voice followed. Calm, controlled, familiar in a way that made my stomach drop. 35 years, the man said, and it all comes down to this room. My mother gasped. Evelyn stepped back. I didn't move, because something in that voice felt wrong in a deeper way, not just dangerous, recognizable. Footsteps approached the stairs, not rushed, not careful, certain. Whoever it was, he didn't fear us. He didn't need to. The red folder sat open on the desk. Project Falcon exposed. Rachel's letter beside it. Ethan's messages glowing in my hand. Everything finally connected. Everything finally uncovered. And now the final piece was walking toward us. Slowly, one step at a time. The footsteps reached the landing, stopped. Silence again. Then the door opened. The hallway light flickered weakly from the backup generator, and a man stepped into view. Tall, older, gray at the temples, expensive coat. Calm eyes, too calm, my breath caught instantly, because I knew that face. Not from the news, not from documents, from my life, from my childhood, from my memories. No, it couldn't be, but it was. Uncle Richard. I whispered. My mother went pale. Evelyn made a sound like she'd been struck. The man smiled faintly. Not warm, not kind, controlled. Hello, Claire. My knees nearly gave out. My father's closest friend, the man who attended every holiday dinner, the man who spoke at my father's funeral, the man who hugged me when I cried, the man who told me I was like a daughter to him. He stepped closer, and his eyes drifted to the open folder. Project Falcon, then to Rachel's letter, then to Ethan's phone. No more secrets left, he said softly. My voice shook. You. He tilted his head slightly. You finally see it. My mother whispered behind me. Richard, what is this? He didn't look at her, only me. Your father was never strong enough to handle the truth, he said. My heart pounded. And you were. A faint smile. I was the one who made the decisions. The room went silent. The words didn't make sense at first. Then they did. Slowly, painfully, like glass forming inside my chest. Evelyn stepped forward. You were involved in Flight 728. Richard exhaled lightly. Involved, he repeated. No, I designed it. The world tilted. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. Richard walked toward the desk, looked at the folder, almost nostalgic. Project Falcon wasn't theft, he said. It was restructuring. My mother shook her head. You killed people. He didn't react. People always say that when systems change. My stomach turned. Systems, not lives, not families. Systems, I stepped forward. Where is Ethan? Richard finally looked at me, directly, and for the first time, something human flickered in his expression. Not guilt, not regret, recognition. Your brother is exactly where he chose to be. My breath caught. What does that mean? He nodded toward the folder. Ask him. My hands tightened into fists. Don't play games. A faint sigh. I'm not, he said. Ethan came to me. Silence, impossible silence, my mother whispered. No. Richard continued. 8 years ago, when he found the letters, he came searching for answers. My mind raced. That part was true. Ethan had found Rachel, he had contacted her, he had investigated. And when he understood what Project Falcon really was, Richard said, he made a choice. My voice cracked. What choice? Richard looked at me again, and this time his voice lowered. To finish it. My stomach dropped. No. Ethan wouldn't, Ethan couldn't. Richard reached into his coat, slowly, no fear, no urgency, and pulled out a sealed military badge, old, official, stamped. My pulse stopped. Ethan's name was engraved on it. My legs nearly collapsed. Richard spoke softly. He joined us. My world shattered. No, I whispered again. But even as I said it, pieces began falling into place. Ethan's secrecy, Ethan's investigations, Ethan's disappearance, Ethan's messages, Madison's warning, not prisoner, not victim. Choice, my voice broke. Why? Richard stepped closer. Because your father made the first mistake, he said. He tried to protect Rachel. He paused, then added. And Rachel discovered what happens when you stand between a system and its money. Evelyn whispered. She was killed. Richard didn't deny it. My chest tightened violently. Was it you? For the first time, he hesitated, just for a second. Then, it was necessary. Something inside me snapped. I grabbed the red folder. You destroyed families. Richard nodded slightly. And built stability. I laughed once, a broken sound. You call this stability? He looked around the room, at the lies, at the pain, at the truth finally exposed. No, he said, I call it order. Sirens suddenly echoed outside, distant, growing louder. Richard frowned slightly, then looked at me, and for the first time urgency entered his voice. Claire, listen carefully. I shook my head. No more listening. He stepped closer. Your brother didn't betray you. I froze, my breath caught. Richard continued. He replaced your father. Silence, my mind couldn't process it. What? Richard's voice dropped. Daniel Mercer wasn't the mastermind. A pause, then the final truth. The system needed someone to control Flight 728's legacy. He looked at me directly. And Ethan became that person. The sirens were close now, outside the house, right outside. Red and blue lights flickered through the windows. Richard exhaled. It's over, he said quietly. But before anyone could respond, a loud crash echoed downstairs. Then a voice, familiar, broken, real. Ethan. My heart stopped completely, because that voice wasn't Richard's, wasn't Madison's, wasn't my mother's, it was Rachel. Impossible. Gone, dead, but unmistakable. And from the darkness downstairs, someone answered her. Ethan isn't here anymore. Silence fell, then footsteps, slow, weak, ascending the stairs, my breath caught, the door opened. And standing there alive, barely, was Ethan, bruised, tired, but real. He looked at me. And for the first time in this entire nightmare, he cried. I tried to stop it, he whispered. Behind him, Richard closed his eyes, as sirens filled the house, and Rachel's voice echoed again from somewhere unseen. Then it's finally time she knows everything. Ethan shook his head. No, not like this. But it was too late. I looked at my brother, at the man who knew everything, at the man who chose silence, at the man who chose the system, at the man who still loved me enough to come back, and I finally understood. The truth wasn't one secret, it wasn't one lie, it wasn't one betrayal. It was a chain built over decades, by family, by fear, by power, by survival. And now it was breaking. One link at a time, I stepped forward. And for the first time since this began. I didn't ask what happened. I said, tell me everything. Ethan closed his eyes and began. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment. Tell me about the door that opened for you. Hit subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.